Alright everybody, let's see what we got done today. We'll start here on the truck side of things and what Kenny the owner got done. You can see he been working on the frame rail, getting things stripped off of it. We got the fuel tanks pumped out and removed, and all the brackets for the fuel tanks removed. The battery box was right there, got it disassembled and off the truck, got all the wiring out of the box. He he left the solenoid and breakers and everything all hooked up so that when we go to put the new boxes on, it'll be quicker to install. We won't have to figure out how everything went. He also, I asked him to zip tie the positive cables together, just so there wasn't any confusion what was going on there. And then the other day when I removed the starter, I did the same thing, except for I zip tied the negatives together, just to make things faster on the reassembly. So yeah, passenger side, fuel tanks, extra brackets and straps and everything, they're all down off the frame. He began unhooking the air lines today, and so those boxes will be coming off tomorrow. And so I spent the day working on tearing down the engine. You can see I haven't got it all the way, but we're getting there. Lots of parts everywhere. So I still have the gear case and the flywheel housing to remove. And I'm thinking I'm probably going to go ahead and remove those first. And then following that, I'll clean the block up real good and check the protrusion heights, see what they're going to come out to be, and cut the block at that point if I need to. I'm kind of expecting that I'll have to cut it. In some engines, you about have to. It's good practice, no matter what, to cut it, because you can see the block failing where the liners sit, which you can see here, the ring where the edge of the liners are. But this block is in really good shape all in all. I mean, just to look at it, obviously I haven't cleaned it up enough to put a straight edge on it or nothing, but the machining marks in the top of the block, they're still visible pretty much everywhere. The edges where the bores are for the liners are real sharp and not ate away or deteriorated in any way. So that's all a good sign. If you can see here on cylinders 5 and 6, a couple years ago when Kenny first bought this truck, he blew the head gasket, and we had to pull these 2 cylinders out and cut counter bores on those 2, which you know, it's just common on Caterpillars that 5 and 6 are weaker, more prone to blow the head gasket back here. So anyway, we'll just get it all cleaned up and evaluate it at that time. Looking at the block and other, likely problem areas is here where the O-rings at the bottom of the liner, where they set, it's really common to get corrosion not corrosion, but pitting, electrolysis eating away at the block where there's a little ramp for the O-rings to slide down. And this one's got the beginning stages of it, but it's not horrible. I mean, you open up some blocks and it's like the surface of the moon. Just really, really pitted and craters, and you can't leave it like that. You got to do something about that, because if you push a O-ring over top of it when they're ate up that bad, you're going to slice your O-ring all up, and then you're going to be leaking coolant into your crankcase. There's a company out there or two, or there's guys out there that do machine work on blocks, and they'll actually cut that land and press an insert in there, which I'm sure sometimes that can be necessary, but if that electrolysis, if that pitting is just in the ramp area where the O-ring slides over top of it, what we do is we just take some quick set JB Weld and smear it down into those craters to fill them, and then sand them out smooth. Because usually where the O-rings set themselves, you don't have the electrolysis problem there. It's just you don't want to tear up those O-rings on the way down into position. So yeah, what else we got here? We got all our pistons and liners sitting out. All in all, they didn't look too bad. The spray pattern on the pistons didn't look too bad. The liners, you could see where the cross hatching was getting pretty weak on them on the thrust sides, where they wear against the liner the most. So this engine never failed. It didn't blow a head gasket. It didn't have tons and tons of blow by where it was undrivable. But we knew the mileage, and he just wanted to, hey, I want to do this before anything really bad happens. So, yeah, he could have ran it who knows how much longer, but he's got peace of mind coming now that his engine should be good to go for a long time. Yeah, the liners coming out of it, they look pretty good. In general, they don't have a ton of electrolysis in them. You can tell right there's where it would be if it had it, and it doesn't. We got two liners that we put in a couple years ago when we cut those counter bores. They still look awesome, but the others, for their age, I mean, this truck has 1.4 million on it. A little, I don't know, it's north of 1.4 million anyway. And so I'm not sure how old the internals of this engine are, but they don't look too bad. It's got all of these injectors have been replaced at some point. They all got reman numbers on the side there. If you see a cat number and it's a 10R or a 20R, then that means that it's a reman part. So I was explaining to the customer what these were, piston cooling nozzles. He wasn't aware that the truck had them, but I will just say, if you're ever working on them, on any engine that has cooling nozzles, remove them before removing your pistons and rods. The slightest bending of those nozzles, and when you reassemble that truck, you'll end up burning the engine up, or burning a piston up anyway, if those things aren't putting oil exactly where they were designed to throw it. I think we'll probably go ahead and replace the rocker studs. They're just kind of known for snapping, and so new hardware there is just cheap insurance so we don't have breakdowns down the road. We got our spacer plate here, which holds the harness for the injectors and the jakes and the intake actuator. We're not too worried about the intake actuator, but when you look at the center plug in each third of it, is for the jakes. And so you can see here this plastic gets brittle, and this one, it's broken apart and fallen off of the terminals. And I was thinking I saw another one doing that. Maybe not. But anyway, assuming we don't see anything else wrong with this harness, we're going to replace this pigtail here. So we check that on these. When we reseal the engine, there's an O-ring there we'll replace. The other thing we look at is this here's the connector for the injectors, and you want to inspect that really closely, because the injector has two studs, and one stud goes through each of the slots there, obviously. And so that's you know, that's sorry, checking out my wires here. Might have to look a little further into these here. But anyway, if you tighten down the nuts on those studs on the injector too tight, it will actually crack the metal here underneath the nut, and then it'll push it out, and that gap between the two sides, when you tighten the nut down, will actually, it can get close enough to touch. And we've seen it before where it's been cracked like that, and it'll cause the injector to miss. And on the one that we had having that trouble, it wasn't a dead miss. It was intermittent, kind of sporadic, and I don't think we ever found that problem. He ended up taking it to somebody else and reported back to us that they tracked it down to being these ends here, and they are replaceable. Cat sells those ends. You know, if you don't want to buy a whole harness, you start seeing too many issues and you need to just replace the harness. But especially if you're in a situation like this, if you're out on the road and you have one issue, you know, and you need to get it fixed and keep going, that's really truly what those ends are for. So if we don't replace this harness outright, we'll definitely be inspecting it very close. So those are internals of the engine that are out of it already. There's a spacer plate that goes between the block and the head. Now, when you're dealing with these, if it's as old as the rest of the engine is, typically just, you know, my opinion is get rid of it, get a new one in. This one is only 2 years old, so we're going to carefully clean it up and then inspect it to see if it's fit to reuse. I have every expectation it'll be fine to reuse, but I say carefully because when you're cleaning this up, when you want to get rid of that graphite material from the head gasket, you can't use a Scotch-Brite pad or anything like that, because that'll remove metal. You want to use a wire wheel to clean all that off. That way you protect the surface of the spacer. The thickness of that spacer, it comes into play with the head gasket and the liner protrusion, and in order to have a good seal there, this plate needs to be perfect. So before we install one of those, whether it's a brand new or a used plate, we take a mic and we measure the thickness of the spacer around each liner to ensure that we've got a uniform thickness there. It's you know, we do it for our own good, for our own protection. We don't want them to fail after a while. So here we got a idler gear underneath the cam gear. We always inspect the bushings in these gears whenever we have them out. It's common to see those wearing over time, and you'll see little pitted craters in a squiggly line going through them. There's another one in this gear here, and so we're commonly replacing those. Another thing that we inspect when we're checking things out is this little assembly here. It's the drive for your fuel pump and power steering pump, and so it unbolts out of the back here. When I get that out, I'm going to check the bearings. There's 2 roller bearings in there, and I've had those go out a few times. One was on a running truck, and it's just making weird noise from down in that area, and so pulled stuff apart, and sure enough, those roller bearings were worn out. On another one that I found them out is just during a normal rebuild, and yeah, so sure enough they were out, and so, you know, I sure don't want to put together a job like this so big and miss something like that. It just really frustrating when you've had it torn down this far and miss stuff like that. It's not common for those to go out, but boy, I want to make sure I look over it and check it. So here we got another pile of parts. You know, some will be used, some will not. AC compressor, it was clutch was going out on it from the looks of it. He wasn't experiencing problems, but he's getting a new AC compressor. Air compressor, it's not too old. I think we'll be keeping that. Fan hub actually looked like it was okay. I was surprised. So I'll check that one more time, listen to the bearings as it spins on its back like that. But at a glance, I think that is okay to reuse. And here's our head. I just got done power washing it because we made a phone call and checked with the guy who is down the road and fire rings these for us. And sometimes there's a long wait to have one done, and sometimes they act like they can get them done a lot faster. You just never know what it's going to be. And so for the $1,000 or so for it to be fire ringed, we're going to go ahead and send this one out to be done. It's not necessary on this build. I was comfortable building it without having it fire ringed, but it is going to be turning a bit more than $550, and you know, it's $1,000 of insurance that he's buying when putting this head together. That's not too bad. Everybody knows, like, on these cats, the head gasket is a big deal. So once you fire ring them, if you got your protrusions right, you really don't have to worry about the head gasket blowing anymore. So yeah, that's ready to go out. We'll take it over to him in the morning. That's basically the state of the engine and the build at this point. I was going to mention, just as I was working on this engine today, a few different things that I thought I'd mention to people, you know, as I was using and working on it. One of the things is this bearing deal that we got on our head. When it comes to pulling and installing heads on trucks, and you know, and radiators even sometimes, just anytime that you're hanging something and moving it into place, that bearing deal is just a lifesaver. It glides and just incredibly smooth, and you don't have to worry about fighting the chain, you know, twisting the head into place and stuff. So if you do this sort of work, if you do any sort of work where you're lifting heavy stuff and trying to position it in place, boy, you should find you one of these. They are just awesome. Hey everybody. So apparently my GoPro that I was filming on, it got hot, and it told me it needed its union brake, or it wasn't on doing nothing more for the rest of the day. So yeah, abruptly got shut down there, and yeah, anyway, I really didn't have a whole lot more I was going to say. There's just one little thing that I thought I'd mention. I don't know if you paid any attention or not, but I mean, I was turning that engine down, and underneath the engine, there's some oil spots and stuff, drops, but in general, it's keeping it clean. I had a pile of floor dry near the engine on the floor, and periodically just sweep it underneath the engine, mop stuff up, sweep it back out. You know, keep it clean. I really encourage anybody who's working on trucks of any sort, every once in a while stop and clean stuff up. I mean, I've seen so many guys in shops where, you know, it's like it's a bedding of floor dry everywhere. Like, you can't step on the concrete because it's just such a mess. I don't like tracking a mess all around. Relatedly, same with tools. Keep them clean. You get oil or grease on them, get some brake clean on a rag, wipe them down before you put them back in your box. I mean, the dirtier your environment is, the quicker that dirt spreads around. You get yourself dirty, your parts dirty, everything else. You shouldn't be touching stuff and leaving fingerprints on it. You know, anyway, just a little pet peeve of mine watching other people work, and so that's my thoughts for the day, my accomplishments for the day, and with any luck, we'll have another video for you about tomorrow. So I'll talk to you later. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you find it worthwhile. I would appreciate it. Later.